Hey there, welcome to Middle Age Crazy, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. With your host, Chuck T.
Hey there, what's going on? Chuck T with the Middle Age Crazy podcast, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. Thanks for tuning in today, and if this is your second time tuning in, you checked out episode 1 and you came back for number 2, thanks a bunch, we appreciate it. A big thanks to my first guest of the show, Carnage the Executioner. I think the interview went really well, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback about the show. If you're not super familiar with Carnage, go find his new album, Ravenous. It's on all the streaming sites. It's a great album. But I want you to check him out on YouTube as well. He's got these series of videos called Public Execution. He's got beatboxing, rapping, all kinds of great stuff. You're going to fall in love with it. You're going to dig it. So go find Carnage the Executioner on YouTube. And like I said, I've gotten a lot of great feedback about our first guest. And now we're going to transition over to an old friend of mine who's going to talk about acting. And then coming up in the next month or so, we're going to be talking to a friend of mine that's in the CBD business, as well as a published poet. So we've got all kinds of action coming up for you. And remember, we only do 2 shows a month on the 1st and 15th of every month. Like I said, I've got way too much going on right now, and that's about all I can handle. But if we take off and demand gets bigger, maybe we'll do some more shows. Now, I'm not sure how you found us today, but you can find the show on all the major podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, all those. Here on Podbean, who's doing our main hosting, we're on Spreaker, SoundCloud, we're all over the place. And you can find us on social media at Middle Age Pod. We're doing Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I hate to be the guy that begs for follows, but the interaction on social media, you guys know how important it is. So we need all the love we can get on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you can do. If you dig the show, give us a share, a like, thumbs up, tell us we're cool. Do whatever you can to help us get the word out, please. And I can't forget about the hotline, 515-478-3412. Give us a call. We're taking all the feedback we can get right now. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. If you got some ideas for segments, just give us a buzz. If you say something cool, we'll throw you on the show. 515-478-3412. We want you to get involved as much as possible. So we got a couple segments we could use some help on, so you got to give us a call. The first one is called Now That Guy Got Canned.
Now that guy got canned.
If you have a great story about getting fired from a job, or you know somebody that got fired from a job in a cool way or a funny way, give us a call on the hotline, tell us a story in a minute or so, and if we get enough cool stories, we're going to play them all, and then I'm going to tell my story about getting fired from the radio station Rock 108 right in the middle of my shift back in college. It's a hysterical story. And we also have the hotline open if you're looking for some life advice. Maybe you need to know how to win over a girl. Maybe you're going for that big promotion at work. If so, if you need some advice, give us a call and ask Crack a Don. Yes, you heard that right. The Midwest musical performance artist, whatever you want to call him, he's a legend, and he just happens to give out fantastic advice. He's been around the block more times than you. And a few years ago, we actually did ask Crack a Don before with a couple videos, and we thought they were pretty great. Here's a clip.
Ask Crack a Don, yo. Ask Crack a Don. You gotta ask Crack a Don. Ask Crack a Don.
Reggie asks, Crack a Don, in your opinion, what are the best love-making albums?
Oh, that's an easy question.
Easy?
And a hard question.
Okay.
A lot of people might throw out the cliche Marvin Gaye, Teddy Pendergrass, Al Green.
Barry White.
Yeah, Ooh Baby, Let Me Do You. No, what about like Slayer? I get down to some Slayer, man. I'm just going to throw a couple other names out there. You got Miami Sound Machine. Very underrated. Simon and Garfunkel. That's what I'd be doing it too.
Well, Simon and Garfunkel.
Olivia Newton-John.
Let's Get Physical.
Yeah, I got this one record. Oh.
Ask Crack a Don, yo. Ask Crack a Don. You gotta ask Crack a Don. Ask Crack a Don.
So if you're looking for some good advice, give us a call, 515-478-3412, and ask Crack a Don. And now let's move on over to my guest. His name is Curt Bouril, and he's a professional actor. I've known the guy for 30 years, so this was a pretty interesting interview to do. He's done movies, TV, commercials, Broadway. The guy's done it all. Now he's a dad. He just moved from Manhattan to the Midwest. He's got a real interesting story going on. So we're going to talk to my old pal Curt Bouril about being a professional actor in your 40s. So we're going to get rolling, but first, a quick word from a 41-year-old man. And now we bring you Confessions of a 41-Year-Old Man.
I have friends and former classmates that have accomplished a lot in their lives. They have gone on in life to win major awards. They work for famous companies and travel to exotic places. Their lives are showcased on social media for the rest of us to enjoy and envy. Yet, if I can get through a meal without splattering something, anything, on my dress shirt or tie, I'm king of the world.
My name is Curt Bouril. I'm 42 years old. I am a New York transplant who lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin right now. And I am a television, film, and Broadway actor.
All right, we're going to get the show started, at least the interview portion here. We are talking to my friend, old friend I've known for years, Curt Bouril. How the heck you doing?
I'm super great. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You're one of the first 2 or 3 people I'm going to have on the show, so I can't guarantee this is going to be perfect, but you're helping me out a great deal testing the equipment. So you might be my sound check guy, but I might end up using somebody else first. I don't know yet.
I love a mic.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about your acting career because you're one of the few people I know in the quote, I'm doing finger quotes, industry, and I want to talk about what it's like to be I guess middle-aged person in their 40s, still working in the business, got a family,
right.
Kids, the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
All right, before we get going, I always like to make sure people get a chance to plug anything new they got coming up. So what do you got coming up?
I opened my big fat mouth and said to my wife, you know, hon, if we were to get pregnant, I'd love to be a stay-at-home dad for the first year. So I'm 10 months in, and I got 2 months left. And then we'll talk about what I can plug. Because right now I'm just literally changing diapers and dealing with teeth coming in and crawling on way too many objects in the house. So right now I'm a stay-at-home dad.
I can appreciate the Michael Keaton angle. You know, I can appreciate that. I myself too. You know me. I have my kids almost 3, so I know I know exactly what you're getting into, and it's kind of funny because being old dads, I think there's a kind of a next level of complexity to it because I don't get up and down as easy as I used to.
Dude, she's almost 3?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's going pretty fast.
Wow, where does it go? Yeah.
I know. I'm going to be buying her cigarettes before I know it. Let's talk about you and your acting career. You're a young adult. You're in your 20s. You're going to school at the University of Iowa.
I am. I was, yep.
Or he was. Why acting? What happened? What just said, you know what, I want to do that. I want to go and try one of the most difficult industries in the world. Yeah.
So, prior to getting to college, I have an older sister who was in theater in high school and college. And every single show I went to hers, I had to. I was the younger brother, and I would sit in the audience with my parents at opening night and whatever it was. And I would go, fuck, I want to do that so badly. I would sit in the show and just be like, God, I want to do that. And I never did. I never took that leap. So, jumped to a stoner in college, and I'm a history major thinking I'm going to be a history teacher.
No, was that really wait, hold on, that was your original major with history?
No, I had multiple originals. But at the time this happened, I was going to be a history teacher. I really enjoyed my history teachers. I enjoyed getting high and reading about history. So I thought, those two things mesh. So there I am at the University of Iowa. I'm studying history, and I'm listening to Pablo Honey by Radiohead, and I'm riding my longboard next to the river. And I'm skating past the theater building. And I stopped my skateboard. And I went, oh, fuck, man. That's what I should do. I should be a theater major. And as luck would have it, I walked in, and there was this wonderful woman behind the desk named Denise. And I said, hi, I'm a history major. I think I want to be a theater major. And she was like, great, let's take a look. And she pulled everything up on her computer right there. And everything I needed to do in the future was done for me by a woman who was excited for me to be a theater major. And it was done. And that was it, man. And then I continued to ride my skateboard to the theater building next to the river at the University of Iowa. And I literally dipped my toe in the water. And as soon as my toe hit the water, I jumped in. I was just done. And I completely changed my mindset on all of it. And to be completely honest, it was one of the first things I had to really, really, really work at to understand and be good at. Everything else I was kind of like, nah, I'll try it. Nah, I'll do it. Like it just kind of, not that it came easy, but it came. Yeah. And I didn't work at it. This was the thing I had to really work at. Because there were some really, really talented people in my department. And I was like, oh shit, like I need to go home and study this. Oh fuck, I need to wake up early and try this. I need to, so it was a challenge, and it was intriguing, it was interesting, it was new. And even though I loved everything my sister was doing when I was growing up and watching her do it, it was like way harder than I thought it would be. It was way more challenging, but also completely fulfilling. And that was the first time in my life that I was like engaged in what I was studying, if you will.
So actually giving a shit in college.
Exactly. And I'm not saying other classes I didn't take woke me up a little bit or interested me, but this was completely different. And like, I couldn't get enough, man. I could not put enough big, comfortable, giant, warm, delicious sweaters on me while reading these plays, or the history of it, or the origin of it, or the psychology of it, or the movement of it, or the voice of it. Like, it was so, I couldn't get enough of it. And I was late. I was an old junior, so I was older than everyone in my grade, if you will. Okay. And so I had a little bit of that in my craw. Like, I had to battle that. Like, who's this new guy? First of all. Secondly, he's older than us. Like, what's going on with him? There was a bit of like proving myself. Okay. And it certainly wasn't easy. I mean, I remember my first auditions in the department. I didn't know what any of it was, right? So like, the vernacular, the lingo and stuff like that? Certainly. I didn't know any of that. But I didn't know when they said we're holding auditions. I didn't know what the proper material was to audition with. Yeah. I didn't know I think it said length, right? And then obviously some people sung. I didn't sing. So I hope not. No joke, dude. I walked in and I did a monologue from Good Will Hunting and a monologue from Pulp Fiction. Did you do the apple scene? No. Good. But everyone else did monologues from, one classical and one contemporary. And they did plays and they did monologues from real works. I did monologues that I memorized because I thought they were so fucking cool. I did not get a role in that semester. No way. Yeah. I know, shocking, right? I came back the next semester, so in late January or whatever it is, to audition for the second semester of the season, and I did pieces from real plays, one contemporary and one classical, and I got my first role. My first roles came from that. And I remember a woman coming up to me who was a graduate directing student, and she said, Curt, you have already grown so much. And of course I'm cringing like, oh no, she was in that room when I did those two terrible film monologues. She's like, no, really, honestly, like your connection to it all. And I was just like, oh, that's actually a really sweet thing to say. Thank you. Because I was, a nobody doing nothing. But to me, it was the biggest stuff in the world, So it was interesting. And I remember the feeling that first time I auditioned, going up to the board. And everyone was checking the board. And I parked my car, and my girlfriend at the time stayed in the car. And I went in, and I looked for my name for a callback or a job or, a role. And there was nothing. And then that next semester I walked in and I'm still sweating and I'm sick to my stomach and like, oh my God. And I looked at the board and I carried my finger all the way down and there were multiple callbacks. And it was just like, oh my God. Not validation, but certainly not the hook sitting in the water with no bites, you know?
Okay, that's good. How many plays did you end up doing in college?
So in college you want what's called the main stage. You want to be on the main stage, the most seats, the biggest shows, those things. I think I had one of those, and it was a small role. And then I had these smaller theaters. I was the lead of a couple, and then most of the time I played small stuff and wished I was the lead in these other big shows. Mm-hmm. And I learned something actually there were two moments in college that stick with me today. Her name is Meredith Alexander. She's an acting teacher at Iowa, where I went to my undergrad training. And she said something in class one day. She said, character actors want to be leads, and leads want to be character actors. You're never going to meet a happy actor because they're always upset about something. And it's true, right? I mean, like, you watch or you read or you, like, these tiny little character actors, or the villain. The villain has more fun than anyone else in the whole show. That's the honest to God truth. The villain has more fun than anyone in a show.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the hero. It's never as much fun as the villain.
It's too much pressure being the hero.
It's too by the book. And the other thing she said was, she pulled me aside one day, and I was new to the department. She pulled me aside, and we were starting class, and she said, Curt, can I talk to you in the hallway? And I said, sure. And I go out there, and the assignment we had to do was backstory for our character. And I made up this crazy backstory for a play called Jack and Jill. And I talked about how I went to
that's not what
Wisconsin.
Hold on a second, Jack and Jill. That's not what Adam Sandler based that stupid movie.
No.
Okay.
No. It's a play. It's basically about a couple that keeps making up and breaking up throughout their life.
Oh, okay.
And I made up this huge backstory about how they met at the University of Wisconsin. She was from a very traditional Jewish family in New York, and he was from a Midwest family, and all these different things. And I mean, I went down to like detail. And all I did was use my imagination to fill in what actually happened to me when I hooked up with a girl at the University of Wisconsin when I went up there for an Iowa-Wisconsin football game. And she thought I cheated. She honestly was trying to call me out, like, where did you get this? Like, and I said, Meredith, I made this up, like, because of it. And she said, this is really fucking good, Curt. Like, this is real stuff you can grab onto as an actor to fill in the blanks when you don't have a line to say. You can feel what this person, she's like, I can't believe you did this. Like, she had a tough time thinking I didn't get this off the internet or something. I probably didn't know what the internet was then. But
I believe that.
It was an aha moment,
Yes.
So, and that's something I still think about now. When you get a role, you have to give it girth. You have to give it weight. You have to give it years of experience. Now that I'm an old man, right? There's many years of no's before you get the yes. And even to give that to someone who's not real, who's made up, and there's two scenes in the show,
Well, what are your thoughts? Like, okay, so you come into acting late. You do a handful of things in college. College is over. Now what?
Yeah, so my theater department in college had a MFA program, a Master's in Fine Arts program, which are people who've graduated undergrad and then go to get master's training, and so they got all the good roles. So I didn't let it bother me that I didn't get any really, really good roles in college, and so I kind of ignorance is bliss thought, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake once everyone's on the same playing field.
Yeah.
So it's spring break my senior year. I went to LA from Iowa with a friend of mine whose sister lived there. So we stayed on their couch, and we go around LA and all this stuff. And my sister's like, oh, while you're in LA, you should talk to my buddy Dave Bush. He works at DreamWorks in animation. I was like, oh, cool, yeah. So I bother this guy that I don't know that was in plays, with my sister in high school, who went to the University of Iowa as well. I don't know this guy. And I take a cab who gets lost, and this cab gets super lost going to DreamWorks Animation Campus in Glendale, California. And I meet this guy, Dave Bush, beautiful campus, having a blast, having a chat, sitting in some it's like a conference room. I don't know what the hell's going on. And he's like, how's Iowa? How do you like it? Whatever. And I'm like, oh, I love this acting teacher. Her name's Carol McVeigh. He's like, oh my God, I love Carol McVeigh. I'm like, and we're like gushing over this teacher. And he goes, what are you doing when you graduate? And I said, this trip's going pretty well. I'll probably move here. He's like, you want a job? I want a job, dude. Jesus. So I got a job in animation. I was a line tester, which was
you don't draw shit. And you're not computer savvy, so how the F are you getting?
No, that's not. So I'm a line tester. So there's two sides to this job. One is so this is back, not computerized animation. This is like drawing animation, right? So like maybe the last, what is like Spirit? DreamWorks did Spirit. And they did, the first movie I worked on there was called, Brad Pitt was the voice. It was called, Sinbad. Okay, so these are artists drawing lines. And I have to go through their drawing page by page to see if the lines match up. In my, rudimentary version of watching this before, the director of the film, he'll catch anything. His name was Christoph. And then half of my job was cueing talent their lines. Okay. So one of my first days of work was with Brad Pitt. And I sat in a folding chair.
Was he just so dreamy?
In front of me. Yeah, dude. Okay, you ready? Can I tell you that story?
Sure, why not? Go for it.
Okay, so I'm working at DreamWorks. I'm driving I have no fucking clue where the 405 runs into the 101, the 110. I don't know anything. And I drive to work, and I get an email. And on the email is the directors, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Brad Pitt, and me. And I think I probably forwarded that to multiple people who didn't need to know their email addresses. But luckily, Yeah. So I drive at whatever time I'm supposed to be at this recording studio. I drive there. I remember, if you watch the DVD, you can see my shoulder a couple times in the extra footage, and I'm wearing like a cowboy shirt, like a Snap shirt, which I thought was so cool, right? I thought it was pretty cool in general. So
I'm sure that aged well.
Chair, and sitting in a folding chair, I got a music stand in front of me, and my highlighted lines that someone luckily put in front of me. And there's this huge hubbub starts behind me. It's like, Brad's here, Brad's here, Brad's here. So I had the balls to, inner monologue think, all right, here we go. It's fucking Brad Pitt. He can't be that cool, right? Like, it's just Brad Pitt. Like, whatever.
He's only the biggest deal in the world.
And this is how he walks in the room, and they're like, hey, Brad, blah, 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 blah. And he's got on jeans, boots, a T-shirt, and a hat backwards. And his hair is pretty long because he's about to start filming the movie Troy.
God, that movie was terrible.
Dude, it's irrelevant. He looks great. I turn around and I look at this guy, and I go, holy shit, look how the jeans fit on the top of those boots. That's so cool. His T-shirt fits him perfect. That's amazing. Oh, my God, dude, I wish I had a hat that fit. Hey, man, I'm Curt. Good to see you. And he goes, hey, what's up, man? I'm Brad. And I went mentally, I go, of course you're fucking Brad, dude. Like, of course you're Brad. But that's all he had to say because it was so cool. He's, hey, man, I'm Brad. And it was just like another level of like meeting a celebrity whose feet touch the ground and sits down in a chair in front of you to start recording this movie. And part of it was another level. Like, part of it was like, holy shit. Then the other part was, oh, he's just a guy.
Yeah.
And there was a moment when we were taping where he couldn't get a wahoo or a yahoo or whatever the line was. And he called me Iowa. He always called me Iowa. Hey, Iowa, whatever. And he couldn't get it, and the director gave him a note. Couldn't get it, he's like, Iowa, you do one. Let me hear Iowa do one. And it was just like, oh, yeah, like, they are listening to me, too. Like, it was an interesting kind of moment where you got to see his, I'm not going to say vulnerable, because obviously there's roles where you have to do, like, real stuff, but it was just kind of cool for him to throw a bone my way to be heard. And that's kind of how it went, man. I mean, that's kind of how, like, I worked with, Catherine Zeta-Jones. I mean, there were a bunch of people that I read with. Michelle Pfeiffer was, in my opinion, the best actor I worked with. She was awesome. She was incredible. I mean, she took you to the scene.
Well, let me ask you this, because it seems like you just kind of fell ass backwards into the connection.
Literally.
And so what does the line tester, Brad Pitt's homeboy on set, what does this lead to?
Yeah.
Like, what's the next stop? Are you trying to go for movies and TV right away? You shooting for commercials? Like, what's the deal?
So, I mean, there's a pecking order, right? I mean, the pecking order changes too. Now it's kind of like, oh, you're Kiefer Sutherland's daughter? Well, then you're with CAA and you're in the next pilot. You know, like that's how it works now.
Okay.
When I was there, it was put your time in. You know, you got to be a bartender for a while. You know, you got to wait tables for a while. You got to do these things. So even though I had a decent job, healthcare and all of those things, paid vacation. I mean, we had a month off.
That's the animation
days. Paid. Yeah, it was great. And I remember telling my mom, you know, I'm going to quit. I'm going to start bartending. She was like, don't do that. And I was like, I have to do the next step. So I quit DreamWorks and I started working at an Irish pub in Santa Monica on 23rd and Wilshire called O'Brien's. And it was it had been around for, 8, 9, 10 years at the time. I mean, at night there was like, who's the actor, Irish actor from In Bruges?
Oh, fuck.
Exactly.
I can't remember his name.
Russell Crowe was there at night, Chris Penn, Ed O'Neill. I mean, it had a pulse to it, right?
Okay.
So like, even though I was just bartending, some of my lunch clients were A-list actors, like, oh God. I mean, I remember the King from Braveheart used to come in. He was a carpenter. Even though he was awesome in Braveheart, he would come in and have, bangers and mash for lunch. And I'd be like, sir, I just want to, and I'd like bug them for advice. I'd bug Ed O'Neill for like acting advice. And they were cool. They were super cool. Like they get it, but also they see it every day. Whether it was the Irish pub I was working at night and Russell Crowe's getting in fisticuffs with, God, why can't I think of that guy's name? Anyways, people right now that are listening are like, ooh, and they're yelling out the name.
Well, I'm trying to decide if I want to be one of those things where we put Colin Farrell?
Colin Farrell was in there at night. Like, I mean, there was certainly a pulse. And if it wasn't them, it was the writer of Mannequin or the guy who
hold on.
Lebowski.
Stop. I get it. Ed O'Neill, Chris Penn. Now we're talking about the guy that wrote Mannequin. How the fuck do you even know they wrote Mannequin? I wouldn't admit that to anybody.
Are you kidding me? That should be the next musical. I said it.
Don't get me wrong. I love the movie, but it's fucking terrible.
What I'm saying is there was an energy, there was like a pulse. Even though I was just bartending now, I was sitting there, this guy named Andy who pulse focused for Deacons, who shot Lebowski. And when I learned this, I wouldn't leave him alone. And I wanted to know about every single shot in Lebowski. I'm obsessed with that film, but like, what I'm saying is it was a time where I was a sponge, but I was also, charismatic enough to not really annoy people when I was probably annoying them.
Yeah. And
I was just trying to learn. And then, like I'm hustling to get a commercial agent, and then I'm, trying to get the commercial job, and then I'm getting, a job on Boston Legal, I'm on doing whatever it was, it kind of just kept growing. Now, granted, there were definite and still are times of just like Sahara Desert, no rain. It's not raining at all, so there are times in my career and continue to have times in my career where there's no work. And then there's times when things are going great, like I have vivid memories of being on a show and I have a commercial shoot that's coming up and I have a pilot that wants me. And the 3 productions get together to find out what my schedule is going to be for the next few weeks.
Ballin'.
Then I have vivid memories of like going, shit, man, I would have loved to play cop number 2 in that movie. You know what I mean? Like, so there's times of like absolute Sahara Desert.
Frightened inmate number 2.
Yeah. And I think, yeah. And sometimes you'd love to have that job, man, cause it's a director you enjoy or, when we get to it, I'll tell you a story about, the last couple of years, but right now it's the early part of my career and, I'm living in Santa Monica and I'm kind of doing this life. I'm running around to auditions. You land a commercial agent and then you start booking commercials. Then you land a legit agent and you get some TV work. And then you're working on this film and John Leguizamo is shot in the movie and you're an EMT. And John's looking at you like, hey, does that look real? And you're like, motherfucker, I don't fucking know, dude. I'm not an EMT, bro. It's just like, this is your life. It's so bizarre. Well, you book a spokesperson role in a commercial and you shoot 10 commercials for them and then you're making set amount of thousands of dollars that you don't need to be waiting tables anymore. And then a year later, you're catering Oprah's New Year's party. It's such a roller coaster.
See, I couldn't, that's one of the reasons why I think I didn't go all the way with my multimedia career, because it was feast or famine for a while when I left town. And I was screw it. I just want to pay my bills and not be a complete homeless loser.
And there's no, full respect to that too, because the lows are so low, dude.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
You can't say to the person who doesn't want you for, KGB agent who never has any lines in the TV show that you don't fucking care about. Hey man, I was just working with Steve Buscemi. No one cares. And it's true for these people who sweat it out at Juilliard. Every role I go in for, someone went to Carnegie Mellon and Juilliard and Yale for that role. It's such a street fight. And I try to forget that I only went to the University of Iowa or whatever, because no one cares. So why would I let that weigh me down when I'm in there?
No,
but I know for a fact there's people who are like, I went to Juilliard. What's this guy doing? And then I get the job. You never know, man. It's such a trip.
How did you go from, are you still in LA when you get the Boston Legal gig?
Yeah. That was my first real good juicy TV role, with David Spader and him picking whatever off the pizza that we were given for dinner. It's just there's this exactly. It's not just action, do the scene, go home. You're there with these people for a day, 2 days, 3 days. I remember Michelle Pfeiffer. I had never seen a cappuccino before, and she kept ordering a fresh one. And I was like, why the hell is she ordering more cappuccinos? It's because she didn't want it to get cold.
Well,
Meanwhile, Brad Pitt's drinking Mountain Dew and eating Red Vines. It's just such a different vibe from everyone that you're around. And David Spader didn't get the right pizza, so he's picking off what. And I'm like, just order cheese pizza, bro. Or you book a Nike commercial, and then you're working with The Matrix, Sean.
What?
Oh God! Terrible.
He played for Phoenix
Suns. Yeah. Yeah, we're off.
And I'm an NBA guy too, and
I am
Sean Merriman.
So bad with Sean. Yes. Yeah. So he and I are playing 2-on-2 with these other guys in the commercial. It's crazy because I threw an alley-oop to someone in the audition. Actually, that commercial, I didn't even get an audition for it. A friend of mine was at the studio where they were holding the auditions for a different commercial and said, hey, there's a bunch of people playing basketball here. You should come. So I rolled up and just said, hey, I acted like I was ready to, audition for it. And then I got a call back and we played basketball in the gym and I threw an alley-oop to somebody that was spot on and they hired me for the white guy to throw alley-oops to Sean Merriman in the commercial.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And then at the end of the commercial, the two guys that were just other dudes with me who were on the same team. Sean was whisked away to do whatever and do a bunch of close-ups on an 8-foot rim.
Yeah.
Literally. And they opened up the back of a semi-trailer and it was all Nike gear and they're like, take what you want.
Damn.
And for me, a kid who used to go to the mall with you and look at Foot Locker and stand in the window and go, man, look at those shoes. I was like, what? I walked out of there with $3,000 worth of Nike gear. Yeah, it's crazy. Honest to God, every day is different. It's like living on a planet where you don't know what weather's coming and how long it's going to last.
That's interesting because in the 20s, and probably even in your early 30s, that has to be pretty fun because, I kind of lived my life that way too. I bounced around the country and tried to have no responsibility and be a musician, and it didn't work out.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun. I couldn't imagine trying that shit now.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get to see other people who catch lightning in the jar, you know, like you get to see your friends who go on to be like either instantly famous and successful or like, you know, 10 years put in and boom, they've got a TV show, you know, and boom, they've got a movie with Quentin Tarantino, or boom, they're spending 6 months at the Skywalker Ranch with Lucas. You know, like these are your friends. It doesn't change them most of the time, but it's just like, oh, that's not me. You know, you continue to kind of like, you know, plug away at it and take that BB gun out and try to shoot away. And you just keep punching holes into it until eventually, you know, you get that next role or you get that next job, I guess. Sometimes it's even just a job that you need, and that you look forward to, but it's fulfilling, man. I mean, from all of it, like it's been great and I'm going to continue to do it because it's just so fun. And you meet some of the craziest, wackiest fun people. And I remember my wife said this after meeting a couple. She was at a party and this couple said, oh, your generation is going to be one of the first generations to openly have multiple careers. You think back at your parents and the generation before them. Yeah. They had a job and they stayed there. They moved to where the job was. We moved to where we want to live and then take a job. Most of the time. Or like currently, you know, we're living in a city where my wife took a job. So we moved to the city for the job. And again, that can change. My wife can certainly have a completely different career in 2 years. You know, with the way my industry is now, I audition with a LED circle, light that has a stand where my phone clips in the middle and I send clips off to Atlanta, Chicago, New York, and LA. And that's my life. Like I film it in my dining room with a backdrop. You know, hopefully my kid's asleep. Otherwise, I get takes in while he's, you know, quiet enough.
That's bonkers.
You do not have to stay in whatever industry you're in now. Our generation is proving that.
What made you pull the trigger on, I'm done with LA and I'm going to go to the East Coast to New York City?
Yeah, so this is going to sound as kind of crazy as everything else, but my sister lived in a rent-controlled apartment in Greenwich Village, which in my opinion is the best neighborhood in New York City. And awesome. She got engaged to my brother-in-law, Pete, and she called me and said, hey, I'm engaged. I was like, oh my God, congratulations. And she said, do you want the apartment? And I was like, holy shit. Now, I weighed my two options. I was dating a wonderful woman who was 15 years older than me. It wasn't really going to go the distance. I was working for a billionaire and his family as a nanny and a butler and all this other stuff. And I was auditioning and working in the industry. Then you have this apartment that's in the best neighborhood, in my opinion, the best city in the world.
Yes.
I had lived there for a set amount of months doing an off-Broadway show. And I thought, that's the pasture I want to go to. That grass is greener. I've, of course, thought back, why did I leave? I had a good life in LA.
Yeah.
And I told my boss who lived in Bel Air and like a triple lot, like, I mean, super wealthy family, that I was nannying. I was a manny before the term manny existed for his 3 kids. And you know, I told this woman I was dating, I'm moving to New York. Like I'm done with LA. And I traded in no joke, I was driving a 1983 Mercedes-Benz that was converted to run on vegetable oil. And I was flying.
Really? I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was a blue, beautiful blue, like, you know, like the professor, like, wow, this is my car in the 80s, and this is my tweed jacket, and this is my pipe that I smoke. I drove a 1983 Mercedes turbo diesel, 4-door, with beautiful latte-colored, like, light tan interior. Gorgeous car. And these billionaire kids wanted to ride in that more than their bulletproof Cadillac Escalade. That was the kids' car. They wanted to ride in my car everywhere we went. Oh, it's so funny. And I had a surfboard on it most of the time, like a surf rack on it. And I traded all that in for a 6.5 floor walk-up in Greenwich Village. And luck would have it, I did the same Broadway show, had a new location. We did that. And then I was running out of money off a Broadway show contract and living in the Village. And I got a job bartending in the Meatpacking District. And it was like the perfect time to be working in the Meatpacking District because the money was insane to work 3 nights a week. And I met my wife while bartending. And then Boardwalk Empire happened. And then my first Broadway show, then I met my wife.
Okay.
Then Boardwalk Empire, then a couple more Broadway shows, and then I was offered like a tour of a new musical that was on Broadway. It was the perfect time to move to New York. And at the same time, I look back and go, damn, why did I leave? Because things are so good in LA. But they all come with that left hook that comes out of nowhere and just fucking loosens your teeth. You know, like all of these decisions come with highs and lows. I had to start over. I didn't know a single casting director. I didn't know a single agent. It all started over for me. I was dropped from my agency during my first Broadway show. I was dropped from my agency. And I remember being like, I'm on Broadway. How do you, and they brought in a new agent who had better what he thought of me. You know, it's part of the business.
Interesting. Would you say Boardwalk Empire was the first? Because I'm looking at your list, and I don't want to do the whole IMDb list or whatever, but I don't remember you on 30 Rock, and I watched that show. How did I miss you on 30 Rock?
Yeah, dude, we're fucking high school friends. How did you miss me, dude?
But here's the caveat. I'm pretty sure I'd never watched an episode of 30 Rock sober.
Okay. So
I was usually pretty ripped. So
this is what you don't. This is part of the industry that like is just not really talked about. There are thousands of jobs that me and another guy, and the other guy got it, right? So like I could go through. I mean, I could have a house on the shore right now if I would have gotten the jobs I didn't get. And that's true for every actor. So it's not just me. It's every actor. Unless, of course, you're fucking, Clint Eastwood's son. Like, he's going to get those jobs. But you go in against him and they go with him. And
but look at the job but look what he's made. He's doing Fast and Furious movies. Come on.
I'm using him as an example. I've never auditioned up against.
I'm bagging on it, but I've seen every one of those.
I do know that Clint Eastwood. I've never seen one. I do know that Clint Eastwood does have a son. I realize he works. I was just using him as an example because there's plenty of nepotism in the industry. So what I'm saying is, even though the thing I did on 30 Rock, I read for them 20 times. And every time I went in for them, casting was like, "Oh, you're great. That's great. Thank you so much for coming in. You're awesome. We're going to get you on the show." And
they say that to everyone, though?
No. They can't. I mean, they have an honor code in there too. And so I remember her name's Katya. She's the writer and producer and probably directs episodes too, of High Maintenance on HBO.
Yes, I love that show.
She was a casting director on 30 Rock. And she'd be like, "God, Curt, you're so right for this. I'm sorry the last one didn't work out. Let's see for like over and over again." And bigger roles than what I ended up shooting for them. But the role I ended up doing was I met Liz Lemon for a blind date. I was referred to her by Jack Donaghy.
Yeah.
And it was the same day that I brought my daughter to the office. So Cabletown was the company that owned NBC at the time on their show. And I met her for coffee, and I had to bring my daughter to work that day.
Okay.
My daughter was played by a young actress who went on to have like her own show for a season or two with like Andrew Rannells and different people. It was kind of like a competition to like Modern Family or whatever. But like you just never know. And it was just one episode I did on 30 Rock, but it was phenomenal to work and be on a date with Tina Fey because you got to see this woman who's in charge. I mean, she was, she wrote the book Bossy Pants and stuff, but she was the boss, man. And she was so present with me and the woman playing, the young lady playing my daughter. She was so into it. It was really, really cool to see that. It was kind of phenomenal. And the best part of that was I woke up at 4 a.m. I take a shower, get ready. I lean in. I think we were married at the time. I kiss my wife. "Hey, I'm going to take off." And she's sound asleep, and she lifts her head off the pillow and just goes, "Tell Tina I love her," like in tiredness. And so I'm like, all right, go down the 6.5 flights of stairs, get on my bike, ride to wherever, and I end up in Long Island City where we're going to shoot. And Tina comes over to me, and she's like, "Hey, I'm Tina Fey. How are you?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm Curt." And I said, "I'm leaving the house today." I kiss my wife goodbye, and she lifts her head off the pillow and says, "Oh, tell Tina I love her." And Tina goes, "Oh, tell her I love her too," which is nothing to her. But it made my wife so happy to hear, because actually Tina Fey was one of the coolest people I've ever worked with, but also everything's on her. She's the executive producer and writer of that show. Like, it was really cool to see her handle that, because I've worked with people who were awful, and were only just the lead of the show. You know, like it's or not even. They were just bad people. But you get to meet some. You just end up with these crazy experiences, person to person.
I could imagine. And how I want to kind of wrap everything up here, because we've been talking for a while. I want to wrap up with talking about having the kid, being in New York, the wife's job, all that. But before we move on, I gotta kind of ask about somebody that I know you worked with. I'm a huge fan, and he's currently my favorite person on Twitter. What was it like working with Ice-T? I'm serious. He's my favorite person on Twitter right now, and he legit likes a lot of my replies, so I'm kind of fanboying out right now.
Okay.
But you did Criminal Intent or whatever the hell that show was, right?
Yeah. Yes. SVU. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a small arc on SVU, and I knew him from Body Count, right? I mean, that was like my connection to his work, right?
Body Count's fucking awesome.
Yes, exactly. And so a billion years ago, I was visiting my sister who lived in the apartment I eventually moved out to, and they were filming Law and Order in Washington Square Park. And my sister's like, oh, they're filming down there. You should go check it out. Well, I had never seen a TV show filmed. So I go down there and I'm like leaning against the fence and, you know, they're going to be shooting in the street and it's all closed off. And I'm just watching and it's pretty cool. And at one point, some crazy ass woman walks like through everything and just goes, yo, Ice-T, doing it. All right, Ice-T. And just like walks through. They'd like cut, you know, hold on to some crazy person in New York. And I remember going, wow, that was nuts. So, cut to however many years later, I'm doing a small arc on SVU, and my dressing room's to the left, and to the right, when you go down this hallway, is like all the regulars, you know, like Mariska Hargitay and like everybody else whose names I'll probably mispronounce as I go, and there's, you know, Ice-T's, and his wife's name is Coco. I'm sure you know this.
Yes.
And I'm sure you know this as well because you follow them on Twitter and whatever, but they have these two bulldogs.
Yeah.
Those bulldogs run that floor at the Chelsea Piers studio.
He brings
those bulldogs are everywhere. Oh, dude, come on. The guy does. I mean, it's like he's been doing the show forever. It's his show, ultimately. I mean, and so I get to meet him. I say hello. It's nice to meet you. I said, you know, dude, Body Count was like another level for me. I grew up in Iowa. I had your tape. Like I had to hide it from my parents. Like he's like, oh, you know, and then that's it. Like I know the guy, like if you will, like now the dogs are walking in my dressing room while, you know, and like Coco's coming to get them. It's bizarre, but that's your reality for set amount of days while you're working on the show. And so at one point we're shooting the show where, you know, all the extras are hubbubbing around the background and all this stuff. And we're going to be working on this thing. And Ice-T, like raises his hand to the director and he's like, hey, real quick, you know, how late we're going to be here tonight? And the director's like, you know, I don't know. See, like, we'll figure it out. He's like, because I got to go by 6, man. And they're like, what do you mean you got to go? He's like, I got to get to this dealership by 7. Like, I have to be there. And so it kind of floats over everyone's heads and stuff. And I remember I was supposed to be leaning against the desk or something. And then I stepped forward with some information for the scene in this one scene. And I look over. And he's supposed to be looking up this shit where the victim was last seen or whatever on his fake computer on set. And he's got his phone out and he's thumbing through purple Lamborghinis. Because when he gets out of there at 6, it doesn't matter if we're fucking done or not. He's got to be to this dealership by 7 to buy a purple Lamborghini. That is reality, dude. That was his reality that day. That was his reality that day.
And what were you going to do, ride your bike back?
My 1982 blue Schwinn that I had locked up, I had to ride back to my neighborhood, yeah. But he was done at 6. Like, I got to leave at 6, man. I got to be there by 7. And that actually happened that day.
Oh, my
God,
that's ridiculous. It's just
another day in the life, man. It's crazy. And then I think, like, right now, I think about where I was a year ago. I was working on a Tony-winning Broadway show. And when that closed, I moved over to a show called Beautiful, which also won a Tony, but it's 5 years old now. And then a year later,
it should have. That was an amazing. Is it a musical, a play? What do you call Beautiful?
Beautiful. Yeah, Beautiful was a musical. Yeah, it was like a bio.
Oh shit! Hold on a second.
Musical.
Stop. You hear that?
too.
I have a bunch of like soundproofing shit hung in my room, and one of them fell off the door, and so now he wants to fight it. So I got a pug, and he thinks he's a bad motherfucker.
Next time you're in LA, you have to eat at Benito's burritos, dude.
Oh, really? Tell me about having a kid. You're a late in life dad like myself, so you're like, what, 40, 41, we were about to have this kid in New York City. You're a working actor. What are your first thoughts about bringing a kid into New York City?
Yeah, so, my wife and I decided to try to have a child and the highs and lows that go along with that. And I was, when we did get pregnant, I was an unemployed actor. Kind of picking up work where I could, it wasn't in some epic show that was like every night I was going to the theater, anything like that at the time. And so the stress, of reality of what this is going to cost and what the time frame and everything is going to be started to weigh on me. And then out of nowhere, actually we were hiding the pregnancy because it was early on in the pregnancy. We drove from New York City to Iowa City, Iowa, surprised my grandfather for his 90th birthday. And while we were in Iowa City, and my wife's not drinking at all the family events and all that stuff, I get a call from my agent that I have an audition for Boys in the Band, which is a upcoming Broadway show. And my wife gets a call around the same time that she has to go back before me. So I drive from Iowa City to Chicago, drop her off at O'Hare, and I recorded all of the lines that are opposite the roles I was going in for. So I drove from O'Hare to Lower Manhattan, listening to my own voice and read it and sang the lines back that were mine to my own voice for a day and a half, went upstairs, showered, jumped on my bike, rode up to the audition. Fucking crazy. I was insane. And the casting director is taping me for the director. And I come out and I'm like, I don't know my ass. I don't know what's up and what's down. And I run into multiple guys in the waiting room that I know. And they're like, oh, fuck, man, what are you doing here, dude? This is my 5th callback and like all this stuff. It was my only audition for it. And they're like, it's fucking over, man. You're going to get the job. We've all been here multiple times. And I remember I walked outside and I was like geeked out with the Broadway shows next to me in the light. It was like 8 o'clock at night. I rode really slowly downtown. I went to my local pub that I know the bartenders at and stuff, and I ordered a beer, and I was just like, what the fuck am I doing, man? Get the call the next day. You're on hold for that job. You're going to be doing this Broadway show with one audition. And I had friends who had gone in for it 5 times. So then now the pregnancy moves forward. The job's going on. I tell the cast, we're pregnant. We're going to have a baby. They throw me like a 7.5-minute baby shower on stage before the show one night, and they all give gifts, and
cool.
It's just bonkers, man. And then from there, and I ended up winning a Tony this year. And then from that show, I moved over to Beautiful, the Carole King musical, and I was doing that on Broadway for a while. And then this kid shows up, and before you know it, that awesome maternity leave that my wife was able to be home with the kid and worked hard for to get from the company goes back to work, and now I'm wheeling this kid through the subway and up to auditions, and I've got strangers watching him, while I go into audition. And you try to be as present as you can when you're a brand new parent with this teeny little sea monkey baby that's sitting with a stranger in the waiting room, and you're like, I'm trying to book this job, and it's bananas, dude. I mean, it's just so hard to relax and be present for this job opportunity when really you're just thinking about this kid outside. And is he gonna, sometimes you can hear him cry or you can hear him whine or, but honestly, I've watched 2,000 kids while the mom or the dad went into the audition. I always volunteer. I'll just sit with them. They'll be fine. And so I remember pushing him to my first audition, his name's Timothy, to the audition thinking, is this going to bite me in the ass and no one's going to, am I the leper and no one's going to try to, sit with the kid? Every single time the room is like, oh, he's fine. We'll watch. Like, it's such a community. It takes a village. And every single time people have been great about it.
This is going to sound bad, but do you get any extra sympathy out of it? Like, oh, man, the dude brought his kid.
Never.
Give the fucker a job.
No.
Bunch of savages.
Yeah, it's true because there's so many of us. There's so many dads our age with kids, multiple kids, you know, like, and you have to earn that gig. You know, you got to book that job. You can't just give it to someone out of sympathy. I will tell you that I went in for a job, and I remember I was like, oh, fuck it, I don't care about this job, whatever. And they were like, you have to shave for the audition, all this stuff. I didn't shave. I brought my kids. Like, they called me that night, and they were like, will you shave? And I was like, well, yeah, of course I'll shave for the right price. You're like, oh, yeah, all this stuff. And they were like, this is a medication commercial. It's all these different things. It's going to run forever. And I was like, all right, actually, you know what? I got to turn this down. I have my kid with me. I can't do this job. And they were like, hold on. Called me back, and they're like, what if we hire a nurse to sit with your son? He was a teeny baby. To sit with him while you shoot this. And it was one of those commercials where it's just one guy talking directly to camera the whole time. And it's like tomorrow. It's really? Literally like right now you're sitting in your studio at home right now, and it's tomorrow in Connecticut. And you're like, fuck. So I had all this copy to memorize. I had all this stuff. And I bring my baby. I have a car service pick me up. We drive with my baby in the back of a fucking Lincoln Continental. We get there, and this sweetheart of a woman, everyone was great. I shouldn't just point her out. She was lovely, but everyone was super sweet about the kid. And I'm in this huge old theater standing on the stage alone with like maybe a couple like lights behind me, talking directly to camera as it floats around through this huge old theater where like Fleetwood Mac has been, and Elvis and Elton John, like all, you know, like a huge ton of history involved. And I can hear my kid, like, way back in the guts of the theater, like, whining, because I got to give him a frozen bottle of breast milk while my wife's at work. Like, the experiences that come your way in this industry are stupid. They're just ridiculous. I could not have made that up, or the fact that Oprah made me do shots of tequila with her and Jerry Jones, the owner of the fucking Dallas Cowboys. Like,
That's quite the motley crew.
I'm just saying, like, you cannot write this shit. It just comes your way. It just happens. You know, like when I was making ends meet. I was working as a door guy at a club, and Charlie's Angels was big at the time, and so like all three Angels were there. So I'm like having to walk them to their car, and I'm with Drew Barrymore and Lucy Liu, or I forget who was in that movie.
Yeah,
but
those two were.
Three of them walking, and then of course Cameron Diaz, and Drew Barrymore turns to me and goes, "Do not stand too close to me while we're walking because they're going to think we're together."
Really?
Like, bitch, I got to go to a fucking apartment with three smelly ass dudes tonight, and you get to go to your mansion. We're not together, okay? But it's just crazy. The life experiences and the stories that come out of these things are bonkers.
Hey, hold on again. Now I got a fucking cat trying to get in. Just hold on. Okay. Anyway, so we're back. No more cats trying to get through the door and a dog barking. Tell me about schlepping the kid around New York City to go to an interview. Did it ever make you feel a little worried? I gotta go on a subway, or I gotta take a cab. What'd you do?
Okay, so when my tenure in New York was about 10 years, and I used to ride a bicycle everywhere. And there's never the clipboard person looking for you to sign up for the Save the Oceans or, any of these things. And you're just on your bike and you do your thing. Mm-hmm. And then I'm a stay-at-home dad with this baby, and I have to ride subways again, and I have to get cars and, all this other stuff that goes along with it. So it kind of took me out of my element for a while. But you forget how much time you have to kind of run your lines. So now you've got a baby in a brand new stroller, which was a beautiful gift from all these fucking celebrities and boys in the band, Jim Parsons and Zachary Quinto and, Matt Bomer and Andrew Randolph. Like, they'll all put money together for you, and it's really lovely. And you're pushing this beautiful stroller down in the subway, and you're the crazy guy with a baby repeating lines to yourself out loud under your breath, but still out loud on a train. And everyone's kind of giving you, they're like, oh, do you want a seat? And you're like, no, I'm fine. And you're trying to run like this psychopath SWAT scene for, whatever show you're going in for. And it's just yet another level of how bonkers this industry is. Really, honestly, it's just so bizarre. One of the weirdest moments I ever had was when I auditioned for a play they were going to do at BAM, which is the Brooklyn Academy of Music. And John Turturro was the star of the show, and he was reading with all of the actors. And so you walk in thinking you're going to read with some kid, you know, who's just graduated from NYU who couldn't be happy enough to just be in the room. And John's like, no, I'll read with you.
And it's the fucking Jesus.
Dude, it's so crazy. It's so here's a story that like really you cannot even like fathom. I walked into a callback for the movie The Irishman, right? And I go into the callback, and the assistant of the casting office kind of brought me in just slightly early. And the casting director is still on speakerphone with Martin Scorsese, and he doesn't know I'm in the room yet. And he's like, all right, well, tell him I really like his work on Boardwalk Empire, and tell him to be less of a newscaster and more of a newsman. And she's like, okay, Marty, all right, bye. And the phone's up, and she looks at me and she's like, did you hear that? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay, less of a newscaster and more of like a newsman. And I'm like, you mean like on the beat, like has to get the story that day and has to get the story into his editor and all this stuff. And she's like, yeah. And I said, but he did like me at Boardwalk, right? Like I make a joke for her to lighten it up. She's like, cause you know, she needs this done for Marty. And I tried to make a joke quick and she wasn't having it. I'm like, all right, well, you know, some rooms you win, some rooms you lose. So I tried it and she kind of like rubs her eyes and she's like, and I said, you know what? You tell me what you need because I want you guys to get what you need. That's what I want. She's like, all right. So we leave there and I can hear her dialing. And I'm walking out of the room and he answers the phone and it's, you know, it's out of my hands. That night, I had taken a job to cater as a waiter some party in New York City. And of course, I didn't get the job from Martin Scorsese in The Irishman. But that night I was a waiter with all these other struggling, striving actors. And I can't turn to them and go, how was your phone call with Martin Scorsese? You know, like you just can't, it's just so bizarre, bro. It's so weird. And I'm on the losing end of some of these stories, but there's also stories where I win. You know, there's stories where I'm the fucking prom king that night or that week or that month or that movie or whatever it is. It's just so bizarre, man. You know, I've got, and at the end of a show and you're talking to, you know, the Coen brothers afterwards. And it's just bizarre. They just watched you act on stage and you're like, why can't I talk Lebowski with you? You know, like, or whatever, you know, it's so weird. And, I don't think, you know, I'm ever going to get a parade thrown for me, but I also, you know, when it's all said and done, I can kind of cash my chips in and say, I'm still legging it in this industry, which chews people out every day.
Yeah, because a lot of people packed up their lunch and went home.
Yeah, and that's okay too, man. It really is. Like it's such a. I wish I had, you know, a gift of language more than this, but it's such an ass fuck sometimes.
Yeah, well, I could imagine so. I mean, it's essentially they treat you like a piece of meat, and you're asking to be treated like a
right.
A piece of meat.
And then if you get the job, you show up on set, and some assistant is like, "How do you want your scrambled eggs?" And they run off to get you that. And then the next shot, you know, you're going to be in Tel Aviv, Israel. So you fly, you know, first class to Tel Aviv. And then they take care of you like a king there. And then you fly home. And then your next audition is like, okay, so, you know, you're going to need to say this. And you're like, yeah, I know I need to say, like they start treating you like an elementary student again. And then you're reading for Eric Stoltz. And you're like, want to talk to him about how he didn't get the job in Back to the Future because he's directing this episode of, you know, Madam Secretary. Or it's just endless. It's constant craziness and how it all fits in.
Are you missing any of that with being out of the scene for a while?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you just get used to these fastballs that are being thrown at you, and then it's a curveball, and then, you know, and then sometimes it's right down the pipe. And so, yeah, sometimes I do. But we relocated to Milwaukee, Wisconsin because my wife took a great job, here. You know, we no longer have the apartment in New York City. We're in this beautiful place, beautiful house in Milwaukee, huge, way nicer than anything we've been living in New York. So there's a trade-off to it all, you know, but yeah, I go down to Chicago for auditions and, you know, you audition for the Chicago shows and plays and stuff. And And it's a real hustle down there too. It just doesn't have the gravitas, you know, it doesn't quite have the weight that things had in LA and New York. And, I do miss some of that in New York, the hustle and bustle. And, you know, there's just so many moving parts of New York City. It's certainly not just the entertainment industry, and it's not just banking, you know, and it's not just advertising or whatever. You just kind of miss the unexpected craziness of it all. And at the same time, you know, it's nice to have the routine of the bottle is now, and then the nap, and then, you know, let's get up and go for a walk, and we'll go get bread from that bakery. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, that's
totally
nice too.
Is the plan to get back to New York City? Or you just don't know what's going on?
Well, the good news is, my wife's a very, very smart woman, and she has opportunities that can take us to different places. You know, so I would be happy if we landed in Atlanta. I'd be happy if we lived in Chicago. I'd be happy if we landed in LA again. I'd be happy if we land back in New York. So it's kind of nice to not have roots, and you have to be somewhere. But at the same time, it is, you know, really, really nice to be out of it for a while. So to be here in Milwaukee, which is a lovely city, by the way. If you don't know it, I recommend you come up and see my ass. It's a really, really nice city, and it's going to have a boom. So I think it's going to have quite a nice little explosion soon of people who want to live in a good city with good beer and good food and moderately priced. So to get back to one of these major cities where my industry is, will be a decision we have to, you know, make, knowing what we'll lose that we've gotten used to here. But I could see us living in New York or LA again. Okay. I'm okay with Atlanta or Chicago. It's all places that I can still work, you know. But I think if anyone's listening to this that thinks about this exact industry that I'm in, you just have to mold to whatever they're looking for. You know, you can't just say, I am this type, because you're limiting yourself. You know, you're putting yourself in a teeny little teacup, when the rest of the world is still spinning around you. It's one of those things where you kind of just have to be open to the bonkers craziness of it all and say yes to the right projects, because you don't want to, you know, kind of. I have friends who worked their asses off and have peaked because they weren't able to be flexible to what was coming next.
No, that makes sense. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground today, and I don't want you to give me all of your stories yet, because we're going to have you back on to tell some more stories.
Dude, I've got so many ridiculous stories.
That's what I figured. So, I think we'll call it a wrap for now, but we'll definitely have you back. And I want to get a little more story focused next time and tell, you know, maybe out a few celebrities for doing stupid shit. Maybe Kevin Spacey tried to touch your penis. Who knows, you know?
No, but I do have a friend of a friend Kevin Spacey story.
Perfect. Save it for next time.
Hey, how'd you come up with the name Bonito?
For the dog? We adopted him. That was his name. I didn't pick it.
Man.
I didn't pick it. He's a 2-year-old dog.
You can't even like name him Chewbacca Wook or anything like that?
No. Okay. But my dad has a black pug, and its name is Darth Vader. And he didn't name that one either. He adopted one. Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Okay.
Ed.
Yeah, exactly. So, good catching up. Appreciate the time. Of course, good luck. But let's catch up. Let's catch up again soon, okay?
All right. When I start my podcast, I'm going to interview you possibly first.
Okay. Go for it.
All right, my man. Have a good night.
All right, later.
Late.
Thank you for listening to Middle Age Crazy, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. Brought to you by moonsaltmusic.info. Underground and independent hip-hop for the old heads. Free downloads available now. All show inquiries can be sent to middleagecrazypod@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Middle Age Pod. call us at 515-478-3412. Ask for Janice. Middle Age Crazy is a Greg Valentine and Clarence J. Washington production.